Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about whether or not China should reunify with Taiwan if America attacks Iran. So there's a lot of discussions happening online on Twitter, X, TikTok, many online sources, many YouTube videos asking whether China should reunify with Taiwan if Iran gets attacked. So obviously I have my own opinions, and but I can see both sides of the argument. There's one side of the argument where people are saying if America attacks Iran, this would be the best time for China to reunify with Taiwan, as America and Europe and the rest of the world will do nothing, and they cannot do anything except place sanctions. But even if they place sanctions or tariffs, they can't do anything because China holds all the cards. They hold all the rare earth cards. They are top trading partner in over 190 countries. So economically they can't do anything. Militarily they can't do anything. So why can't China just reunify with Taiwan? So I do understand that argument. And if they and they are right because America and the rest of the world would be distracted by Iran. And don't forget, Russia did the same thing as well. So, do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was the first. No, it was the second Gulf War. It was George Bush Jr. when he launched the second Gulf War against Iraq, and with all these lies about weapons of mass destruction. At that time, Georgia was looking to join NATO, and Georgia was extremely pro-West. They were extremely antagonistic towards Russia. They were hosting NATO, de facto NATO bases in Georgia. So while America was distracted with the Iraq War and with Afghanistan, Russia basically did a small war with Georgia, and they completely slapped Georgia down, taught them a really big lesson. And Georgia basically became an independent state. There was no more talk about them joining NATO. There was no de facto NATO bases in Georgia anymore, and Georgia has been a good boy ever since. Russia would not be able to do that if America and the West were not in Iraq. If they were fully focused, they would have completely joined in, either joined in to help Georgia or completely applied sanctions and tariffs towards Russia and tried to destroy the country. And back then, Russia was it's very weak at the time because they've just come out of a Soviet collapse, and so Russia was extremely weak economically. They were really poor, and um, and they took advantage, and they took a very good advantage, and it was the best time to attack Georgia at the time. And I remember George Bush Jr. was screaming and shouting, he was like, "Oh, Russia cannot do that, Russia cannot do that," but they couldn't really do anything because they were too busy with Iraq and Afghanistan. So I do understand Taiwan is not really a Georgia, but the point still stands. The West would be completely distracted in Iran. America would be completely distracted in Iran, and they won't be able to do anything militarily. China, on the other hand, doesn't need to go to war with Taiwan. They can take it without firing a single shot. They can do it via they can basically they can surround the island, and they can do a blockade so nothing goes in or out without Chinese approval. And they can send in special forces like America did with Maduro. So they can send special forces into Taiwan, and they can probably try and kidnap the leaderships, or do something similar. So there won't be a war with Taiwan. I don't think China wants to go to war with Taiwan. They want to do it peacefully, and and it can be done peacefully if China does it right. I think if the Taiwanese army does fight back, they start firing weapons at Chinese vessels and planes, then China can take them out with drones, with missiles, and obviously with special forces. And it would be the best time to do it because America would be completely with Iran, and that war with Iran is not gonna last a few days. You know, if they start a war with Iran, that's gonna last years, like Ukraine, um, like the Ukraine, Russia special military operation is lasting because Iran is not a country where you can just start a war short term and then expect to be regime change. It won't happen. If you want regime change, you've got to have boots on the ground, and it's got to have a long, long war. And even if you take out Grand Ayatollah Khamenei, right? Even if you take him out, the IRGC is independent. IRGC would most likely take over the country, and this has happened in Pakistan as well. Pakistani army and the government are two separate entities. The government doesn't get involved with the Pakistani army, but the army has great um, kind of influence over the government. And there was a few times there was a Pakistani army generals did a coup of Pakistan. For example, there was a General Musharraf. I don't know if you guys remember him. He did a coup and he took over the government of Pakistan not long ago during Bush's war on terror. And and same thing would happen in Iran. The IRGC would take over the country. And if Khomeini is killed or captured or kidnapped, he's put a fatwa in place, by the way. His fatwa is not to have any nuclear weapons. So if he's killed, you can guarantee that Iran will get that bomb within days, maybe even hours. I think they have everything ready in place. And and for a lot of people, that roadblock would be gone, and they can start producing nuclear weapons. So there's a couple of other arguments as well. I think the other argument is China should not take over the island while Iran is being attacked, mainly because time is on China's side, and eventually China would be able to reunify with Taiwan, and time is on China's side. Um, because the West is collapsing and China is rising, and it's just a matter of time before um, Taiwan reunifies with mainland China. The problem with that is how long is China willing to wait? Because every year or every couple of years, there's a new generation of you know Chinese who are growing up in Taiwan who are becoming more pro-West and becoming more brainwashed. Because in Taiwan, kids are brainwashed. They are taught Western, propaganda, Western textbook. They say China is evil. So the kids growing up in Taiwan, they are basically, force-fed propaganda. So they hate mainland China. Obviously, it's not working because there are I know a lot of Taiwanese who are very pro-China and they love the mainland more than their own country. I do know that, but there is a lot of brainwashed pro-Western Taiwanese as well, and a lot of them are not even Chinese. A lot of them are probably ex-Japanese. There was a time when the island of Taiwan is not just full of Chinese; it is also full of Japanese because Japan um, took over the island during when they invaded like most parts of China. So they took over the island. There's a lot of Japanese there, and this is why there's a lot of you know hate towards China because there's a lot of Japanese influence. And there's a lot of other Asians living in Taiwan as well who are not Japanese, not Chinese, but they're very pro-Western. And so yeah, so there's a lot of them who are kind of spreading this anti-Chinese hate in Taiwan. So what should China do? Because they cannot wait forever for reunification. Because every year, these young generation are growing more and more distant from China, and you don't know what tomorrow will bring. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow because if Iran is taken out, for example, if Iran is taken out and they manage to do regime change or they manage to do something similar to what they've done with Venezuela, for example, and they stop, you know, shipments going into China, they stop oil and gas going into China, and Iran becomes completely pro-Western, then China would have lost another ally. And China needs allies, guys, because you have to go through history and you have to look at the Qing dynasty. The Qing dynasty did major mistakes. They ignored what was happening around them. They didn't catch up with all the industrial revolution that was happening throughout the world. And this is why countries like Britain was able to take over 80% of the world, and this is how Japan, militarized and industrialized very fast, faster than China. And look what Japan did to China because of it. And because China was, yeah, they kind of they didn't have many allies as well. So everyone in the Opium War ganged up on China. You had the French, the British, and the Americans, I would say, and probably the Israeli Jews as well. They ganged up on China. Russia ganged up on China as well. They took huge amounts of land, Russia did. And then obviously Japan took advantage as well. They started invading China. So China got basically, surrounded, and all these countries started attacking China. They, burned the Summer Palace and stuff. So China needs to learn some lessons from that. First of all, China needs to focus on their allies, and if their allies are in trouble, China needs to help them. So they cannot allow Iran to fall. And obviously, I know China is helping Iran, giving them weapons and things like that. So that's fine. But the best way to help Iran would be to distract America and the West. So if all these countries are attacking Iran, for example, let's just say Israel, Britain, Europe, and America, they're all attacking Iran, and they're also getting help from other countries like from the Middle East, like Bahrain, like Qatar, like Azerbaijan, because they are using military bases from there as well. So it's like an attack. So Iran is pretty much surrounded by American bases and countries. So there's only so much China can do. I mean, if Iran is under attack, you know, China is still quite far away, and for them to supply Iran with weapons and stuff during the war is quite difficult. And there is a chance that America might, you know, blow up Chinese reinforcements going into Iran. And the best way to distract the West and just them in their tracks is by, taking over the island of Taiwan. And I think that would make the West think about what they're doing in Iran and see what is more important to them. Is Iran more important to them, or is saving island of Taiwan more important to them? And then you will see what the West does, and I guarantee you that they will stop attacking Iran, and you'll probably start sanctioning China. And I don't think these sanctions will last very long because China will sanction back, and that will really hurt the Western economy. And I think Trump will basically make some sort of deal with China, and they will also stop attacking Iran. I mean, that's what I think would happen. In the meantime, Iran needs to do everything it can to defend itself. As you can see from this map, Iran is full of mountains. You can see all these mountains that Iran has. So it's going to be extremely difficult for Americans to put boots on the ground. If I was Iran, I would look at this map and I would make the Strait of Hormuz even smaller. You can see all these ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is already small. But one thing Iran has is geography, and there's a lot of deserts in Iran. I think what Iran should do is to fill up the Strait of Hormuz, like half of it, at least half of it. So let's just say, um, let's just say they fill up, do a massive land reclamation um, on Iran, and they fill up this piece of sea with sand, with rocks from the mountains, and they can do that because Iran has unlimited amount of sand because there's lots of deserts in Iran, and they have unlimited amount of mountains, so they can get lots of rocks and material and just build artificial land and make the Strait of Hormuz much smaller. And what they can also do is maybe build a small city surrounded with military installations. Make this city into an extremely militarized um, area in Iran, and they can do another one. They're already doing that in this island. This island is called Kesh Island, and this island is also very much militarized and full of drones, missiles, ships, planes, and things like that. So they can do something similar to the rest of the Strait of Hormuz. This would make the Strait of Hormuz much smaller, and it's going to be more difficult for Western countries to control the Strait of Hormuz, and plus Iran will be able to more control who goes in, who goes out of the Strait of Hormuz. I think Iran should do that, and China should do the same. Um, China's closest area to the island of Taiwan is Fuzhou. So you have Fuzhou here, and you can see a lot of these islands of Fuzhou. And I think what China could do is build or basically refill these islands. And this would be like a 2 or 3 step process. Already, China is thinking about building an airport here. There's going to be one airport coming up in the near future. And I think this is why it is in their plans to do so. So this will be stage one. And eventually, when they build this airport, hopefully they can start expanding um, slowly. And once they start expanding slowly, obviously Fuzhou will be a great city. Lots of new installations happening all over Fuzhou. And distance right now from Fuzhou to Island is 100 kilometers. And if this becomes 50 kilometers, they can easily build an underground tunnel to go. to the island and back. And China has already built 50 kilometers underground tunnels. This is linking Shenzhen to its neighboring cities around the Yangtze River. And that's something that can be done. So if they make this, um, if they narrow this Taiwan Strait, for example, you're not going to ever have American aircraft carriers or American, military ships or British military ships or German military ships ever going through this strait ever again because this would be too narrow for them. And China would have, you know, complete dominance over the Taiwanese Strait. So no foreign ships can go in and out. And also, Taiwan would never ever become separate from the mainland ever again because it's going to be too close to the mainland. 50 kilometers is pretty much nothing, but 100 kilometers is quite far. 50 kilometers is pretty much nothing. So similar to the island of Hainan, Hainan and the mainland is very close to each other. I think it's separated by 25 kilometers or something like that. Taiwan would never ever in the future become or try to become separate from the mainland ever again. And the Americans and the West will never be able to intervene or get get involved. So I think China should definitely try and do some sort of land reclamation and become closer and closer to Taiwan. However, those of you who know Fuzhou very well and live around the area, many would have noticed a significant amount of changes happening in those islands. Those islands have been becoming bigger and bigger. And there's an article here I saw that it's grown by 60% over the last 10, 15 years. And these articles are saying here, look, there's been an eastward expansion. The most significant land transformation has occurred in the eastern coastal areas, where substantial wetland reclamation has taken place for development. So they are moving more eastwards. And there's also expansion to the southwest. And there's been huge amounts of surface growth where it's increased by 60%, you can see. Wet water reduction. And also it says here 10, 15, if you compare 10, 15 years ago, the coastline, there's more natural expansions of wetlands, particularly in Minyang estuary. And you can see currently between 2020 and 2025, heavily modified by land reclamation, replaced by industrial infrastructure. So you can see Fuzhou is actually is expanding. Its islands are slowly expanding. Give it another 10, 15 years, and I think this reality would be more of a reality. I think once they build this airport, you will see huge amounts of land reclamation happening in and around these islands, and they will go more and more towards the Taiwan island. And when Taiwan becomes reunified with China, then you will see high-speed rail links linking both the island and mainland. And you might even see um, island of Taiwan doing some sort of land reclamation to go closer to China as well. So they might do some land reclamation here and then build a couple of high-speed rail links between them. I think that would be the ideal dream um, to get these islands together and make sure they never get separated ever again. Not in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, you name it. So going back to Iran, guys. So so I basically gave the argument why China obviously should help Iran, and I gave the argument whether China should take over the island um, if there's an attack on Iran. And to be honest with you guys, I'm still caught in two minds whether they should do it or they should not do it. But 100%, 100%, I'm in complete agreement that that does not need to happen. I think it all depends on Iran. I think if Iran gets a nuclear weapon and they do some sort of nuclear test and they announce they are a nuclear power, I think America will just back off. They will not attack Iran. Or I think that if friendly Iranian countries like Pakistan, Russia, and even China as well, they jointly announce a defense pact with Iran, and they would provide nuclear weapons to Iran if Iran gets attacked with nuclear weapons. So there could be Russian nuclear weapons stationed in Iran, for example, or even I don't think China would do that, but I think maybe Russia could do that because Russia's already got nuclear weapons in Belarus. So they could have some sort of similar agreement. And there's a lot of intelligence talking about Saudi Arabia acquiring Pakistani nukes in Saudi Arabia. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but Pakistan and Saudi Arabia did some sort of defense agreement. And part of that defense agreement would mean Pakistani nukes to be stationed in Saudi Arabia in case Saudi Arabia gets nuked. So Pakistan could do the same with Iran. They could, have nukes stationed in Iran, for example, and also obviously provide Iran with a nuclear umbrella as well. So Iran would be surrounded by Pakistan, Russian, and Chinese nuclear umbrella to protect Iranian airspace from nuclear attacks. So that could happen. So China doesn't need to do anything with Taiwan, I believe. I think everything depends on Iran, and I think if Iran gets these nuclear weapons, the West will back off. Because the West, Israel, America, they love to be bullies. They love to pick on weak countries, and they love war. They love killing, and they love to do it with least amount of casualties. So if Iran has nuclear weapons, it will change the game. I think they will stop bullying Iran. They will stop attacking Iran. Same way that they didn't attack Russia when in the special military operation going on between Russia and Ukraine. America was extremely scared to attack Russia for the same reason. And for the same reason, they're extremely scared to even sneeze towards North Korea in case North Korea starts using its nukes. So I think first of all, Iran needs to get nukes, and that will stop the attacks. And we won't even have to have a discussion whether China needs to take over Taiwan or not after that. However, I think if they do attack Iran, and let's just say, for example, they they are they do some sort of bombing raid on Iran, similar to what they did in Iraq, and the Americans also start attacking Chinese ships because there are Chinese radar ships in and around Iran. By the way, there's one intelligence radar ship which is off the coast of Iran, just doing its intelligence, and also there's a couple of Type 055 on its way to help that ship out in case. So let's just say America starts attacking Chinese ships as well because on the premise of basically China is helping Iran, so they're going to attack all the allies and help Iran. So let's just say they suddenly start attacking Chinese ships because they can do that, guys. They can do that. Do you remember in Serbia when the Chinese embassy got bombed and they bombed the Chinese embassy because they had intelligence that China was helping Serbia at the time. So that's why they bombed the embassy and they killed a lot of Chinese nationals and things like that. So let's just say, let's assume they do the same thing and starts attacking Chinese ships. Then things will escalate, and I think that's when China will have no choice but to retaliate. And one way they can retaliate is to take island of Taiwan, and also to help Iran in a much more kind of in your face way, with possibly with boots on the ground and things like that. Well, let's come to that part if it ever happens. I'm just making assumptions here. So we've reached the 30 minutes mark, guys. So I'm going to put an end to it here. So again, there's a lot of netizens, just as a summary, there's a lot of netizens that want China to reunify with Taiwan as soon as possible if Iran gets attacked. But there are some netizens that say that China should be more patient. Let me know what you guys think. It'll be interesting to know what your thoughts are, guys. I've just given you my opinion. These are my opinions, guys. These are not facts or anything like that. These are just my thoughts and opinions. However, just bear this in mind. One thing that is guaranteed, this is 100% guaranteed. If China reunifies with Taiwan, 100% guaranteed the West will not do anything. They cannot take it back militarily and they cannot take it back economically. They cannot place sanctions on China like they've done on Russia. They cannot. Because China holds all the cards. They hold all the cards with rare earths, trade, you name it. They cannot do anything to China. And if they can, reunify with Taiwan, you will see major global shift. Major global shift. And I'm not talking about the small shifts you see here and there. We're going to see a major global shift where countries will realize that China really is a major superpower. The Americans cannot do anything, the West cannot do anything. And you will see not only the global South becoming more closer to China, you will see a lot of Western allies start burning bridges with America and start moving to the Chinese camp. You will see countries maybe like Germany, maybe like South Korea, even Japan, and you see all these other, vassal states of America start moving towards China and they will start to break links with America. You will see a huge global shift, guys. You will see countries buying Chinese military weapons everywhere. You will see countries begging for China to do some sort of military alliance with them. And you will see a huge global shift. You will not see Iran attacked because they will be scared what China will do. You will never see anything like what they did to Palestine ever again, um, because China will be, powerful enough to kind of stop things like that. And you will see a huge global shift, guys. You, you will see a lot of countries moving closer and closer to China, and and you will see the West decline at a faster rate. People will accelerate, they will accelerate moving away from the dollar. They will accelerate dumping bonds. You will see European countries moving closer to China. And if the EU is stopping them, then the EU will be destroyed. The EU will collapse. And the Europeans will go back to individual countries like they were, 50, 60 years ago, or even like hundreds of years ago. They will go back to individual foreign policies and things like that. And you will see a lot of these European countries moving towards and closer to China and cutting links with America. So that's what will happen. That's what will happen if China can take back Taiwan sooner rather than later. And why not? If they can accelerate all of this stuff, then why not? I think they should do it. But again, this is just my opinion, guys. Don't take it with a grain of salt. I'm just inviting comments. I'm just inviting what your thoughts are. I want you guys to have intelligent conversations on the comment section, giving arguments, both sides. And obviously, I'll get involved. I listen to all your comments. I also respond to you guys. So yeah, let's have a chat. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.